Wonderful. So thank you very much, Ken and the team, for this opportunity to say just a very brief few words about university teaching in the collection. I think, as has been really clear from this morning's session, the Egypt Centre plays a vital role in the university's outreach program and also teaching in the communities through its very highly successful schools and also the volunteer program. What I'd like to give you, I guess, this afternoon is something probably a bit more like Dulcie gave and also Wendy gave, which is a personal insight into what I think is really the very vital and irreplaceable role that the Centre plays in the provision of our undergraduate teaching and also our extracurricular portfolio of activities for students. You'll probably know that the Department of History, Heritage and Classics interacts with the Egypt Centre in a variety of ways. We organise conferences together, for example, the BEC in the last academic year, the Sudan Archaeological Research Society's events in the coming year. The Egypt Centre also provides exceptional training opportunities, which have been mentioned in some of the previous talks. Now, for those of you who are not from Swansea University and possibly from abroad.
Sometimes it freezes. Should hopefully move now.
So for those of you who are fortunate or not fortunate enough to be intimately acquainted with the administrative and financial structures of the university, it's worth stressing that the Egypt Centre is in a different part of the university from the academic department that teaches undergraduate teaching. Undergraduate teaching is the job of the Department of History, Heritage and Classics. We're a part of the School of Culture and Communication and the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. So the Egypt Centre and the department, we're in essentially different parts of the university with different human resources and different budgets. So it's complex. The department, for those of you who don't know much about us, we currently have 2 tame Egyptologists on staff that have been captured and tamed and put in our offices. There's Dr. Troy Sigrillo, who's looking startled at the top, and myself. We offer a single honours bachelor degree in Egyptology and ancient history. Some of you might say that sounds like a double degree. It's not. But I think it's worth stressing that this is the only Egyptology degree available outside of the Russell Group of universities. So unless you're studying at Oxford, Cambridge or Liverpool, Swansea is the destination for undergraduate students. Our current first year that have just started last week, we have over 20 students in our Egyptology and ancient history degree. To my great delight and horror, I also see that I have 60 enrolled students in my first year Egyptology course. So it's wonderful to see so many students, and it's going to be wonderful to read all of their essays. And we also then offer a master's by research, and we have PhD students, and we currently have 4 PhD students on the books. And we also then run excavation in the Sudan with a colleague from Rhode Island in the United States. Of course, that excavation's not happening in the meantime. Now, I guess part of the idea about bringing the Wellcome Collection to Swansea was, of course, that it would be used in teaching. And this has always been part of the offer of Egyptology in the 20-odd years of Egyptology as a separate field of study here at Swansea. Our object-based teaching was certainly championed by the previous curator, Dr. Carolyn Graves Brown, and also on the departmental side from Kasia Spakowska, my previous colleague. And of course, a number of my colleagues, for example, Erson, who's going to be speaking after me, Nigel Pollard, Stephen Harrison, they all incorporate objects into their classes. My own personal interest in this approach to teaching, Ken, I can't scroll down on this page.
So if you hit on the white bit there.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
That'll move down. It's because it's moved over to the other.
Okay. So my personal experience or interest in this approach can be traced essentially back to the first time I ever held an object in my hands in a museum, and I had to catalogue it. I had no idea what I was doing. But quickly with tuition, I essentially developed a completely new attitude to my studies. What up to that point had been slides. I started studying when the professor rolled out an overhead machine and a slide machine at the beginning. What up to that point had essentially been abstract and very academic and unfocused quickly became extremely visceral, practical, and also vocational. And my personal experience agrees with studies, of course, that demonstrate that engaging all your senses, not taste, we're not encouraging students to lick objects, but engaging senses heightens student engagement. It provides memorable learning experiences, and it encourages lifelong learning and appetite for further study. This is something that we've obviously clearly seen in our student cohort. I've also been lucky enough to work as an instructor on archaeological excavations in Egypt and the Sudan for about 20 years. And I've been able to witness how it's simply changing the physical context of learning can be really a transformational experience. By doing, not just reading and writing, some students find themselves in a way they never did in a classical classroom. And they then consequently approach their studies in a completely new way. In recent years, we've tried to develop a pathway through the second year of our undergraduate degree that puts engagement with objects at the core of these modules, and also to create a clear skill set progression during the second year. The key is that objects shouldn't be just a fun sideshow to keep the students interested. Rather, they should be at the heart of the syllabus, and that should be reflected in learning outcomes as well as the assessment structure. I'd like to just give you a couple of examples of the types of courses which we're offering in second year. I think my favorite course is CLE 220, Egyptian Art and Architecture, which essentially gives a chronological overview of Egyptian art and architecture from the prehistoric period to the end of the Pharaonic era. The way that we've developed this course, I think, is something quite unique for teaching this subject at universities. What we have is, in the first half of the week, students acquire theoretical knowledge, hopefully by doing their readings and by attending lectures, where we have lectures about the topics that we're going to be looking at. This is a 2-hour session in the beginning of the week. In the second half of the week, then we have practical experience in the Egypt Centre, where students apply the knowledge that they've learned during those first 2 hours and their readings to interpret objects that they're looking at in class. These sessions are always in the same format, so students develop independence and they learn completely without my interference. I hang back and let the students do their thing. The students divide themselves into groups and they work for about 10 minutes on an object that they know nothing about, and I tell them nothing about. Together, they try and work out what they're looking at, and they record their observations and reactions to the pieces on a form with lead pencil. After about 10 minutes, we have some tasteful Bavarian beer hall music, which is played, and the students dance, or should I say they move rhythmically with restraint to the next object. Pardon me. Each week, we look in detail at about 4 or 5 objects, and over the 8 sessions of the semester, the students then analyze around 35 to 40 different objects. The nice thing, I think, and something that keeps them engaged, is that these objects that they've studied then form the basis of the end of semester examination, which constitutes 40% of the assessment mark, when the student have to write responses to the objects, drawing on the one hand on their observations, but also then on the lectures and also their readings. The object handling therefore supports the module aims, and the relevance of what they're doing is clear to the students. Attendance is generally exemplary. They come obviously for the beer hall music, but they stay for the sessions. Attendance is always close to 100% throughout the entire semester. If you're in undergraduate teaching, you know that this is quite, well, impossible. The sessions are very loud and they're fun, and the module feedback always stresses how much students enjoy this aspect of the course. Another activity and module which we teach in second year is the Introduction to Egyptian Archaeology. This was the brainchild of Kasia Spekalska, who taught this module originally. And the idea is that we learn about Egyptian archaeology through the principles of the students writing an object life cycle, so the biography of an object that is in the Egypt Center collection. So students essentially choose an object to research during the semester, and then we introduce the students into ways of recording, observing, analyzing, and interpreting objects throughout the semester. When students who are used to reading books are suddenly confronted with an ancient Egyptian pot for the first time, it's obviously quite difficult to work and get information out of a pot. How do you do it? We've structured the semester essentially so that we have about 8 hours where students work with a single pot. And you're probably thinking, my God, this must be the most boring 8 hours this student has ever spent in their life. And in fact, when the students first come in and work with the object, they look at it for about 5 minutes and say, yeah, I think we've got it. For the next 8 weeks, we develop new skills, new ways of looking at things, and we always go back to the object with these new approaches. And at the end of the semester, the students want to hug their pots, never let them go, and say, we could do another 8 hours with these pots. And I'm not making that up. So this is just another example of the type of teaching that we're doing here. All up, students get about 8 hours of object handling as part of this particular module. I'd like to pivot to something that's extremely close to my heart, and this is then a case of extracurricular student engagement that we offer here at Swansea University. It's the Swansea University Pottery Project. I think like pretty much all Egyptology collections in the UK, when you go to a collection, you'll see the iceberg of Egyptian collections. At the top, you've got all the pretty things with inscribed hieroglyphs and statuary, but the hidden part of the iceberg are the thousands, hundreds and thousands of ceramic vessels, which are in Egyptology collections all the way across the UK. And this is also one of the strengths of the Egypt Center, where we've got over 1,000 individual complete vessels, representing about 1/5 of the entire collection. Most of it's never been studied nor adequately recorded. And of course, due to limitations on space, only a fraction is on display, meaning that the public and also researchers have never seen it. The aims of our SUP, our pottery project, is to provide a complete up-to-date record of each object in the online collection, so it's accessible to all for free. At the same time, we want to promote student involvement in research. We want to engage students in roles that enhance employability and also enhance our learning community. This project is a collaboration between students, staff, and also the Egypt Center and our research group in our department, the Object and Landscape Centered Approaches to the Past, directed by myself and Ersin Hussein. For this exciting project, I think exciting, I love pottery, but usually I have to lock the door when I start speaking about it so people don't leave. But we essentially have 12 student volunteers each semester who donate 2 hours of each week during semester time to the project. Students receive full training in handling, recording museum objects, as well as organising the data for online use using the state-of-the-art online platform. The students work in teams under staff. They use skills to record objects, publish them online, moving to independent work as the semester progresses. And I think one of the really nice things is that students who wish to remain with the project in the next semester, provided they haven't broken too many pots, they're allowed to stay with the project, and then they train the next generation of students. We just started a new semester, and it was the most wonderful experience to see the new people come in, sit down with experienced people, and Ken and I didn't actually say a word, and suddenly all this training was going on. We still have to check the entries, but we'll be doing that and doing the auditing process. So I think this is an exciting project. It enables students to contribute to research, but also building up key heritage and museum skills. You don't have to be an Egyptologist student to do it. And we have students from PhD level all the way down to second year. So we have this wonderful mixing of people of different experiences and different degree schemes. We've got really tangible results. So far, we've provided well over 100 hours of training to students across 4 semesters. Every complete vessel in the Egypt Centre collection is now fully documented. I believe there's over 1,000 objects, but I went and looked at some of them this morning and realized that we've got to go back and look at some of the records. The Harrogate material is substantially completed and it's online and available for research. Now, the next project is, everyone asks, so when you've done the 1,000 pots, what do you do? The great thing is the Egypt Centre has thousands of sherds, and sherds, as all archaeologists know, are much better than complete vessels because you can look at the fabric. So the next stage is to get all the sherd material at the Egypt Centre online. Once we get that, we're going to pivot to training in archaeological illustration, and we're going to be doing technical drawings of every vessel in the collection. And that will take, I imagine, another couple of years. And after that will become the Swansea University Stone Vessel Project. Now, obviously, we can only do all this work on the one hand because of the passion of the Egypt Centre staff, and also certain agreements between the different parts of the university that allow for resourcing of these activities. But at the same time, I think it's also important to stress the really important role that the University of Swansea University students have in the upkeep of the university. Students are incredibly important for making the collection available online. We are also creating new knowledge about the collection by continuously engaging with it, conducting new research. I think one of my proudest moments is that I've got Bachelor of Arts students who are actually writing their honours theses about Egyptian pottery. Some of you are probably shaking your head and saying, why would anyone want this? Katie Morton topped her year doing a thesis on the blue-painted Amana pottery last year. Jess Evans, who is going to be speaking, also is thinking about doing, sorry, maybe I won't mention that. But we have other people working with the collection. I think of our 10 or 11 honours theses this year in Egyptology, 3 or 4 are going to be working on object-based topics in the collection, which I think is a really excellent development. And of course, Swansea University students, they volunteer a lot and contribute a lot of hours to keeping the Egypt Centre open. I think there was around 30, but now there's 20, but there are 9 new applicants, so it'll probably go up. I think when we think about challenges and future collaborations between the Egypt Centre and the department, I think given the current economic climate and the difficulties across the university, I think if we can just maintain what we've established to this point, I think that's already a major achievement. People have already mentioned things about space. And of course, when you're working with undergraduate teaching across different parts of the university and then involving spaces such as the Taliesin, you can only imagine what a difficult triangulation that is between timetabling, organising rooms and things like that. So it's all kind of complicated, but we make it work. But the reason why we can make it work is because the Egypt Centre staff is passionate about what they're doing, and they're passionate that the collection should play a major role in undergraduate teaching, and that's what really makes the big difference. In an ideal world, maybe we could expand the principles of object-based teaching to language teaching. Unfortunately, Troy's not here, so I can't berate him with this. But also we could start developing object-centered ways into third year to allow the students to have some kind of skills progression into the third year, and possibly also then looking at first year as well. But this all requires additional resources and funding, and that's not going to happen in the short term. So all we can do is sing about what we've done so far and hope that somebody's listening. Thank you very much.